Hi, Eric here with 30 by 40 Design Workshop, and I want to continue our video series looking at the barn studio. We've sent the last round of elevations that we talked about in the last video to the client. They made a few requests for some plan changes, and so we've gone ahead and walked them through that. They wanted to move this door to the bathroom. This was the original configuration. The door was a pocket door. The entry door sort of stacked here, and you could come in and use the bath that way. They didn't want plumbing in the exterior wall, and so I wanted to show them what that meant. If you opened this door, there is a conflict here, and so just getting the plumbing wall to the inside face, sure, it would solve that, but this would be worse from a circulation standpoint. What we decided on was to go with this plan, and actually we will be insulating this wall with foam, so we should have plenty of R value there to prevent the freezing issues they were concerned about. As I discussed the last time, the next step in the whole process was to really solidify what materials we were going to be using on the exterior elevations here. Now, when my client thought about barns, they thought about sort of board and batten siding. So our job here is to convince them of what the sort of right direction to take the structure is. In the past, we had always seen this as having a metal roof to it. Unfortunately, their bylaws, the client took this to the design committee, and they wouldn't allow a metal roof on this. So we have to sort of step it back and revisit that a little bit. So we're looking at an all wood sort of exterior material palette, except for the flat roof canopy, which is going to be clad in a metal piece. So what we do is we basically search out imagery for things that sort of resonate with us. Real simple design aesthetic here, and so we want to be careful about what the exterior detailing is. I wanted to show the client this board and batten look, not because I thought it was the best idea, but because they sort of requested it, and that was their image of what a barn could be. And one of the reasons I don't like it is because this structure is not very tall, and these sort of linear lines here, there's not enough of it to really have it read as vertical. And the board spacing is sort of a trick to get right, to make it feel correct. This feels like it's a little too narrow, but the wider you get, the more strange the proportion becomes. So I did want to show this as an option to them, and then that way we could have it for discussion. But really what I was trying to push them toward was something that really married an idea about this sort of 7-foot band that we talked about last time, so that we would have a horizontal proportion for the base of the building, and that's what we're doing here. And then maybe more of a vertical proportion for the upper slot here. This I showed as a hybrid. I wanted to take a step between the original version, the board and batten siding, and what I'm really trying to push them toward, which is this last version. So this is a sort of middle step where I do actually show the board and batten. I didn't want to totally jettison that as an idea. But really what I thought we should do is, in order to keep the material palette as simple and as clean as possible, if the whole upper portion of this is all shingles, then I feel like we know we're going with a wood roof. If we marry that with a wood shingle sidewall above this 7-foot level, that to me says there's sort of two zones. There's a base zone, which is a more horizontal board profile here, which I really like. It seems appropriate with the sliding door panels. It's nice because it creates this sort of horizontal base for the building cap to fit on. It reinforces this idea of this 7-foot band and then a taller band above that. It actually makes this upper portion of the building feel taller. Having wood shingles here, wood shingles to the 7-foot zone, and then a horizontal board siding really felt like a nice combination to me, and I really took inspiration from this image. This is a lot of times what we do. We'll search around for imagery that we think is appropriate and applicable to our particular project, and should present this to the client as a way of them understanding it. Now, sites like Houzz and Pinterest have helped us a lot along the way. We can create pin boards of this. We can create Houzz idea books of this and really say, okay, this is what the upper portion is going to feel like. You're going to have a lot of glass down below, and then we're going to have a horizontal band, and that will sort of cap off this base piece pretty nicely. Now inside, and when we're thinking about the exterior, of course we have to be thinking about the interior. We're going with a very monochromatic color palette. And the window frames that we're proposing are a sort of anodized aluminum, very industrial look to it. The shingles will be all gray, kind of like this kind of a look. We have some metal flashing on the flat roof band. Our hardware is going to be stainless steel, so that feels nice in this whole palette. We have some etched glass panels on the inside, the interior face of in the bathroom, possibly in the main living space, the studio space. Our floors are all concrete. The foundation will obviously be concrete. As I said, the metal flashing sort of plays well with that. And then our wood roof, which will naturally turn to a gray color in the end. And our stone wall, you can see here, that's outside. So all of this is in the very, very similar muted color palette, which I really like. I think it's pretty appropriate. The one question that I have is, as we move into the interior and we go with, we can't go with a completely stark white. This is a sort of off-white. Is there some room for some tonal contrast on the interior? And I guess when I look at this material palette, part of me wants to say, well, do we add some wood accents in here? And the client, I think, is hesitant to do that at this point, but I think I could make a pretty strong case for doing that. I think this adds a lot of life to this palette. Could be nice on a sort of a lower band of the wall, much like we're using this lower band on the outside. We could have some horizontal boarding on the inside or sliding panels on the inside. That would just be a natural wood, just as a way to break up this pretty monochromatic color palette. This to me feels a little dull against this, so I sort of prefer the brighter maple shade. But that's kind of how we go about determining the exterior color palette. We think about, what the site is like, what the relationships to the existing structures are like. The existing structures are wood and stone, so if there is some precedent to draw from this material palette from. This wants to be a more understated structure, and I think going with a muted tonal palette is perfectly appropriate. And so we'll see what the client says and see how the exterior elevations evolve and see what their feedback is. Stay tuned. Thanks.